Hello, hello, hey, sweet people. Welcome to another episode of Inglês no Rádio. As always, my name is Foster, and I am here with the one, the only, Alexia.
Hi,
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I just got my second shot of the COVID vaccine.
Your second dose?
Yes,
How did it go?
it went pretty well. Better than the first one, but I'm still with a little bit of a headache.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Can I give you a quick recommendation?
Yes.
I still have a little bit of a headache. I don't know why we have headaches in English. I believe you said I'm still with. You can say, for example, I got a really bad headache, or I get headaches frequently, or I have. So to get or have headaches.
Okay.
Okay?
But this headache is much, much better than anything else. So I'm pretty happy. Realize não é. Como é que eu falo realizada? Grateful.
Grateful.
Yes.
Yeah. Thankful.
Exactly.
Appreciative.
Yes. Okay, so today we are gonna answer one of your questions that we got from our website, new feature.
Yes. So recently we asked you to submit your audio questions to us so we could answer them live on the show. And today we have a question from Ismael.
Hi, Ismael.
One of our favorite students who has actually appeared on the podcast before. And we have not listened to the question, so we are doing this in real time. But with Ismael, I imagine it's going to be a good question.
So, go ahead, Foster.
Hey guys, Ismael here. My question is there a thin line between accent and pronunciation, or are they completely different things? Also, I think that students tend to worry more about accent than pronunciation. Do you guys agree? Why do you think that happens? Anyway, that's my questions, and congratulations on the new feature. It's awesome.
Thank you, Ismael.
Thank you, Ismael. You are awesome.
Yes. So, I would like to start from the end of the question.
Okay. First, can we clarify to make sure we understood?
Yeah,
Because I think there were two questions he asked. First, he said, maybe three questions. So good job, Ismael, secretly hiding three questions in one question. So first, he said, is there a thin line between pronunciation and accent? So is there really a big difference between pronunciation and accent? The second question was, he believes that students normally worry too much about accent. And do we agree with that? And if so, why?
Yes.
Is that the way you understood it?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you wanted to start at the end?
Yes. Because I know that the first question, you're going to talk a lot about it. So
I can keep it short.
So I think that, yes, I believe that people do waste time thinking about their accent instead of the pronunciation a lot. But the way that I see it and the way that I understand is that there are two answers to these questions. One is that people don't know the difference between pronunciation and accent, first of all. And second is that people are afraid of pagar mico in English, and they think that the accent is the answer of not pagar mico in English.
Yeah, making mistakes, getting embarrassed, feeling stupid.
Yes.
Okay, I totally agree with that. I do think we need to answer Ismael's first question in order to address the other two questions.
Yeah.
So, Alexia, you know that I am a kind of a pronunciation phonetics nerd. So let me ask you, for you, what's the difference between pronunciation and accent? Because within the linguistic community, it's not super clear. Like a lot of people have opinions about these things. I have my own opinions. So I'm curious, what do you think about when you think about pronunciation? And what do you think about when you think about accent?
When I think about pronunciation is the way that you literally pronounce the words, if it's correct or not. The example that I like to give is the difference between tree and three. We all know nowadays that there is a huge difference between número três e árvore in English.
Mhm.
And just the fact of putting your tongue out of your mouth, it makes a whole difference. So this is pronunciation.
Yes, pronunciation is quite literally the production of sounds, the way that you produce sounds using your mouth and a variety of speech organs.
Yeah. And the accent is, I mean, of course that there is the intonation and the way that you speak, like personally, and it differs from where you were raised. So a Russian accent in English will be completely different than the Brazilian accent in English. Of course, because we have different ways of speaking, right? So that's it. That's like the intonation and the way that you speak things.
Yeah.
I don't know, Foster, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but from where I start with you, like in a relationship with you, maybe I had an accent back then, like more Brazilian accent when I was speaking English. And nowadays, because I correct a lot of my pronunciation, my accent is not better, but it's not as strong as it was.
Yeah, I think I agree with all of that. And I also agree in general, when we begin to talk about accent, that's when things get a little bit more complicated because it's difficult to define. So pronunciation is much easier to define. So when you're speaking a language, you have to produce sounds. Each language has what we call in linguistics a different phonology, which is a complicated way to say a sound system. And within that sound system, you produce sounds, and that's pronunciation. It's the way you produce sounds, right? The way you pronounce things, quite literally. And there is a thin line between, okay, pronouncing something almost correctly where people can still understand me. Maybe they recognize that I'm not a native speaker. And then when people can completely not understand you, that's really the line when you can have good pronunciation and a really strong accent and
that's perfect.
Speak English 100% fluently, but you cannot have bad pronunciation and a good accent, because bad pronunciation really means you are going to be misunderstood.
Yeah. And I want to point out that having an accent, it's okay. It's perfectly okay. You can wish to not have an accent in English, to like show English speakers that you are from their group, from their community. But for me, I like to be an outsider that I can speak almost perfect English.
Yeah.
So people are like, where are you from? I like that. I like that a lot. Oh, I'm from Brazil. Brazil. And then you can have a small talk about it. So for me, it's extremely important that I am from another place, that it's not the United States, United Kingdom, and etc. Because I can show them, yeah, I have an accent, I speak English, and I'm here with you.
Absolutely. I think in general, people love foreign accents. And an accent is something that's deeply personal it has to do with the way you were raised, your family, your culture. So, for example, I come from South Carolina originally. On the podcast, I probably neutralize my accent a little bit, but when I'm speaking with my family and friends from home, I have a pretty strong Southern accent. And that is not something that I'm ashamed of. It's something I'm proud of and I love because it's part of my culture.
Yeah, the same thing for me with my Carioca accent when I'm speaking Portuguese. And the same for people from the Nordeste and the same for people from the South. You know, like we had to be extremely proud of our accents in our native language and when we are speaking our second language. So pronunciation, yes, you had to get it right because it's really important to pronounce the words correctly. But accent, it doesn't matter. It's a personal thing.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say it doesn't matter, but to return to Ismael's question, he said, why do we think that students worry so much about accent? I think on one hand, like you said, people are confused about accent and pronunciation. When they're worrying about accent, what they're really worrying about is, are people going to understand me, which is pronunciation. But then I think there is a thin line between if you have a really strong accent to the point where people can understand you, but it still kind of like takes some time. That's where it gets a little bit of a little blurry, let's say. So, for example,
your dad's friend, I can't understand him.
Yes, that's a great example. So, one of my dad's best friends, he speaks with an extremely strong Southern accent, and it can be quite difficult to understand. And that's something that maybe people from the North in the US would perhaps judge him or have some preconception about him because of the way he speaks, because his accent is very, very strong. But in the case of most people from the South who just speak a little bit different culturally and use some different words, we say y'all. Accent is a very pleasant, cute, like agreeable thing. So that's where the line gets difficult for me is what's the difference between like a strong accent and essentially it's a personal choice. Like when you have good pronunciation and then you're just focusing on accent, you have to decide, okay, how much time and energy am I willing and capable to invest in my accent? Because it's a lot of work.
Yeah. I don't think that I ever stopped and think about my accent. I think it came naturally. The change that I had because of me correcting the words that I used to pronounce incorrectly.
Yeah. I mean, you did record like 1,000 podcast episodes
No,
with
but
me.
that was my other point. Like, and of course, having you in my life and recording a lot and speaking a lot and repeating a lot, this helped me a lot. But it wasn't something that I was like, okay, I need to fix my accent. I don't know, it came naturally. So yeah, so nowadays I am from Eastern Europe for in the Americans. So
People do not know where you're from.
yeah, I love that so much.
I had a similar thing with my Portuguese where I learned Portuguese to a level where everyone could understand me. And then I stopped worrying about accent. And nowadays, because we're in Portugal, my accent kind of changes every day. Like sometimes I try to speak like a Portuguese person. Sometimes I try to speak like a Carioca. It doesn't really make sense. But in my personal experience, most people find it kind of cute.
Yes. So, resumidamente.
Yes. In summary, 2 points. There's a difference between accent and pronunciation. Pronunciation is the production of sounds. This is a fundamental part of language learning. In my personal opinion, I think it's probably the most important part, or at least the part that most people need to pay more attention to.
And that's why we created Sound School. So
yes, we have an entire course simply focusing on this called Sound School. You can check it out at our website. Secondly, why do people worry about this so much? At the end of the day, I think we are all scared. We don't want to be judged. We don't want to feel stupid. We don't want to feel embarrassed.
Yeah. He's looking at me like, do you agree with that? Yes, I do agree with that.
Yeah. And that's just
the way that it is.
That is why we say keep up the good fight.
And lose well. Let's learn some pronunciation.
Okay, thank you for the question, Ismael. Thank you for the participation, Alexia. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.